Don't touch him, I will. The words tore out of Caleb's throat as he sprinted across scorching asphalt, his boots pounding against pavement that shimmered with heat waves. Behind him, Uncle Vernon's voice cracked with terror, screaming for him to stop. But Caleb's eyes were locked on the twisted wreckage, and the massive body sprawled in a lake of dark blood, spreading like spilled oil across the highway. Before we dive into what happened next, hit that subscribe button right now. You're about to hear a story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat for the next 2 hours. And I need you to stick with me until the very end, because what happens will blow your mind. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. The screech of metal on metal still echoed in Caleb's ears as he dropped to his knees beside the fallen rider. The man was huge, had to be 6'5", maybe 280, and his leather vest was soaked through with blood that pooled beneath him in quantities that made Caleb's stomach lurch. The vest itself bore a patch that made every hair on the back of Caleb's neck stand up a winged skull with the words Hell's Angels arched above it, Arizona below. "Kid, get back here!" Vernon's voice was shrill, panicked in a way Caleb had never heard before. "You don't know what you're doing." But Caleb's hands were already moving, ripping off his own shirt and wadding it against the gaping wound in the man's thigh where his femoral artery had been torn open. Blood spurted between Caleb's fingers with each weakening heartbeat. "Stay with me," Caleb muttered, pressing harder. "Come on, stay with me." The biker's eyes fluttered open, pale gray like storm clouds, but fading fast. His hands shot up with surprising strength and clamped around Caleb's wrist. You saw..." The man's voice was a wet rasp. "I saw the truck, black Silverado. He swerved right into you, man. Deliberate." "Dalton." The name came out like a curse. "Sheriff Dalton." Caleb's blood went cold. The sheriff did this. The biker's grip tightened, pulling Caleb closer. His breath smelled like copper and whiskey. "In my saddlebag. Leather roll. Get it. Hide it. You need to save your strength. Ambulance is coming." "No." The man coughed, spraying blood across his lips. "Dalton, he'll come looking. Don't let him." His eyes rolled back. Hey, Caleb slapped the man's face lightly. "What's your name? Come on, tell me your name." "Arthur. Arthur Caldwell." The words were barely whisper. You're a good kid. Too good for what's coming." Behind them, Vernon had caught up, grabbing at Caleb's shoulder. "Boy, do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know who these people are?" "He's dying, Uncle Vernon." "Better him than us." Vernon's face was white as chalk. "You think the angels are going to thank you? You think..." He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes going wide as he looked past Caleb toward the smoking wreckage of the motorcycle. Caleb followed his gaze. The Harley was destroyed, but the saddlebags had burst open in the crash. Papers were scattered across the highway, fluttering in the hot desert wind. And there, half hidden beneath the twisted chrome, was a thick leather roll bound with cord. "Don't," Vernon whispered. "Caleb, don't you dare." But Caleb was already moving. He kept one hand pressed against Arthur's wound while reaching with the other fingers, stretching, straining until they closed around the leather. It was heavy, dense with whatever was rolled inside. He yanked it free just as the wail of sirens cut through the desert air. "Hide it." Arthur's voice had gained a moment of clarity, his hand fumbling at Caleb's arm. "Dalton can't find it. Evidence, everything." "Evidence of what?" Arthur's laugh was a horrible bubbling sound. "Everything, the whole goddamn empire, cartel, shipments, payoffs, all of it." His eyes found Caleb suddenly sharp despite the blood loss. "You saved my life. You earn a debt. But that," he nodded weakly at the leather roll, "that'll get you killed." The ambulance screamed around the bend, and Vernon physically dragged Caleb backward. "Give it to me," Vernon hisses. "I'll get rid of it." "No." Caleb stuffed the roll down the back of his jeans, letting his ruined shirt hang over it. He said to hide it. "Are you insane? Do you know what happens to people who cross the Hell's Angels? Do you know what happens to people who cross Sheriff Dalton?" "Yeah," Caleb said quietly, watching the paramedics swarm around Arthur's failing body. "I just watched it." The lead paramedic, a woman named Rosa, who treated Caleb for a broken arm 2 years back, looked up at him with wide eyes. "You kept pressure this whole time?" "Best I could." Probably saved his life. Femoral artery, Jesus, he should be dead already. She worked with practiced efficiency, her team moving in synchronized rhythm. Who did this? Caleb opened his mouth, but Vernon cut in fast. Hit and run. Truck didn't stop. We didn't see the plates. Rosa's eyes flicked to Vernon, then back to Caleb, and something in her expression told him she knew they were lying. But she just nodded and returned to keeping Arthur alive. As they loaded Arthur into the ambulance, his hand flopped out over the side of the gurney. Caleb stepped closer and Arthur's fingers wrapped around his wrist one more time. They'll come, Arthur whispered. My brothers. They'll come for it. And Dalton, he'll come too. His grip was weak now, barely there. You chose a side, kid. Soon as you picked me up, you chose. I didn't choose anything. I just couldn't let you die. Arthur's smile was sad knowing. That's a choice. The ambulance door slammed shut and Caleb stood in the middle of the highway, covered in another man's blood, with a leather roll full of secrets burning against his spine. Vernon grabbed his arm hard enough to bruise. We're going home. Right now. You're going to give me that thing, and I'm going to burn it. He said, I don't care what he said. Vernon's voice cracked. You think the Hells Angels are the scary part of this? Caleb Sheriff Dalton runs this county. He runs the whole damn region. If he's dirty enough to run a man down in broad daylight, what do you think he'll do to a 19-year-old kid who has evidence against him? Caleb pulled his arm free. Then maybe someone should have that evidence. Someone who? Vernon laughed, but it was bitter afraid. The state police, the FBI. You think they're going to believe you over a decorated sheriff? You think they're going to protect you? He stepped closer, and Caleb could smell the fear sweat on him. That biker told you to hide it because the only people who can touch it and survive are Hells Angels. You're not a Hells Angel, Caleb. You're just a kid who fixes cars. The walk back to the auto shop felt like miles instead of yards. Caleb's trailer was parked behind the main building, a rusted-out single wide that leaked when it rained and baked like an oven in summer. Vernon owned the shop, and the trailer came with Caleb's job, had been home since his parents died 3 years back. Inside, Caleb locked the door and pulled out the leather roll with shaking hands. His fingers fumbled with the cord, but finally it came loose and the contents spilled across his tiny kitchen table. Papers, dozens of them, photocopies of ledgers, bank statements, shipping manifests, photographs of Sheriff Dalton shown shaking hands with men whose faces Caleb didn't recognize, but whose eyes were cold and dead. Pictures of trucks crossing the border, license plates clearly visible. Lists of names, dates, dollar amounts that made Caleb's head spin. And there, paperclipped to a page of handwritten notes, was a photo of Dalton standing beside a black Silverado, the same truck that had run Arthur down. Oh God, Caleb whispered. Oh God, he wasn't lying. A knock at the door made him jump so hard he nearly fell off his chair. Caleb, Vernon's voice, quieter now. Let me in, son. I'm okay, Uncle Vernon. Just need a minute. We need to talk about this. Really talk. Caleb gathered the papers quickly, shoving them back into the roll. His hands left bloody fingerprints on the edges. Tomorrow. We'll talk tomorrow. Silence. Then he's gonna come, Caleb. Tonight, tomorrow, soon. Dalton's gonna come looking, and when he does, Vernon's voice dropped to barely audible. When he does, I can't protect you. I won't. I got a business to run a life here. I can't go down with you. The words hit harder than Caleb expected. You're my uncle. And you're just like your daddy, too damn stubborn to know when to run. Vernon's footsteps retreated across the gravel. I'm sorry, kid. I really am. Caleb sat in the dark for a long time, holding the leather roll, listening to the desert wind rattle his trailer's thin walls. On the table, his phone buzzed. A text from Rosa, the paramedic. He's alive. Barely. I see you at county, asking for you. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Then another text, don't come. Dalton's here, watching his room. Caleb's blood ran cold. He texted back as Arthur conscious in and out. Keep saying the kid has it. Dalton heard. The phone nearly slipped from Caleb's bloody fingers. Dalton knew. Of course he knew. Arthur had probably been delirious, talking in his medicated haze, and Dalton had been right there to hear every word. A third text, get out of town. Now. Caleb looked around his trailer at the stained carpet, the crooked cabinets, the life that had never felt like much but had been his. Where would he even go? He had $300 in the bank and a truck that burned oil. He was still sitting there, paralyzed by indecision, when headlights swept across his window. Not the high beams of a semi or the paired lights of a car. A single headlight, motorcycle, then another, and another. Caleb moved to the window, peering through the gap in the curtains, and his heart stopped. They came in a line, slow and deliberate, engines rumbling like distant thunder. Big bikes, Harleys mostly, and every single rider wore the same patch Arthur had, Hell's Angels. 5 of them, then 10, then 20. They circled the auto shop headlights, cutting through the darkness, and Caleb understood with absolute certainty that Vernon had been right about one thing he'd chosen aside the moment he'd pressed his shirt against Arthur's wound. The bikes stopped, engines idling, surrounding his trailer in a loose circle. Caleb's hand found the leather roll, instinctively clutching it tight. A single rider dismounted, a mountain of a man taller even than Arthur had been, with a gray beard that reached his chest and eyes that caught the moonlight like a wolf's. He walked to Caleb's door and knocked. 3 slow, heavy blows. Caleb Hayes. The voice was deep, patient, not threatening, but not warm either. We need to talk about Arthur. Caleb's throat was dry. He's alive, at County Hospital. We know. We also know you saved his life. A pause. And we know you have something that belongs to us. I don't know what. Don't. The word was sharp as a blade. Don't insult us both with lies, son. Arthur told us what he gave you. We want it back. Caleb looked at the leather roll in his hands. Everything, evidence of everything. Enough to bring down a corrupt sheriff and whoever else was involved in this. Enough to get him killed. If I give it to you, Caleb called through the door, what happens to Dalton? Silence. Then a low chuckle. You think we're going to let the man who tried to kill our brother just walk away? I think I don't know who you are or what you're going to do. Fair enough. The man's voice was closer now, right against the door. My name's Clutch. I'm the road captain for the Arizona Charter. Arthur's been my brother for 23 years, and when someone tries to kill one of us, we don't call the cops, we handle it ourselves. That's what I'm afraid of. Another chuckle. Smart kid, but here's the thing, you're in this now, whether you like it or not. Dalton knows you have his evidence. How long you think before he comes for you tonight, tomorrow morning? And what are you going to do when he shows up with that badge and those dead eyes asking real polite where Arthur's things ended up? Caleb's hands were shaking. I could give it to the FBI. You could. And they'd open an investigation that takes 6 months while Dalton disappears every shred of real evidence, and you end up in a ditch somewhere. Clutch's voice was matter of fact, almost gentle. Or you could give it to us, and this ends quick. Quick how? That's not your concern. It is if I'm handing you the gun. Silence again, longer this time. Then you got a code, kid. I respect that. So here's the truth. We're going to take that evidence and we're going to make copies, lots of copies, and we're going to send them to every federal agency that might give a damn. DEA, FBI, ATF, Homeland Security. We're going to bury Dalton in so much scrutiny, he won't be able to take a piss without 3 agents watching. And then if he's smart, he runs. If he's not, Clutch trailed off. Well, that's between him and his conscience. Caleb moved to the door, his hand on the lock. How do I know I can trust you? You don't, but you saved Arthur's life when you could have walked away. In our world, that means something. It means you're under our protection now, whether you asked for it or not. A pause. It also means you owe us the truth. Did you look inside that roll? Caleb swallowed hard. Yeah. Then you know what's at stake. You know why Arthur was willing to die to keep it from Dalton. Clutch's voice dropped lower. We've been building this case for 2 years. Arthur went undercover, played nice with the cartel, got close to Dalton's operation. That leather roll is everything. Every transaction, every payoff, every name. Without it, Arthur's sacrifice means nothing. The word undercover hit Caleb like a physical blow. Arthur's a cop. Was. 20 years with Phoenix PD before he patched in with us. But that's not public knowledge, and it can't be. Not yet. Clutch's tone hardened, which means you keep your mouth shut about it. Understand? Caleb's head was spinning. An undercover cop, the Hells Angels, the sheriff, the cartel. This was so much bigger than some highway accident. If I give this to you, Caleb said slowly, I need your word that Dalton goes down legal. No vigilante justice, no desert graves. I need to know I'm not helping you commit murder. You got my word. Dalton gets what's coming to him, but it'll be in a courtroom. Clutch paused. Course, if he decides to resist arrest when federal agents come knocking, well, that's on him. It wasn't quite the reassurance Caleb had hoped for, but it was probably the best he was going to get. His hand turned the lock and he pulled the door open. Clutch was even bigger up close, his presence filling the doorway. Behind him, the other bikers sat on their rumbling machines, watching silently. Their faces were hard to read in the darkness, but Caleb caught glimpses of scars, tattoos, eyes that had seen too much. "You're 19, Clutch asked. "Yeah. And you jumped into the middle of a hit and run to save a man you didn't know, wearing a patch that scares most people half to death." Clutch's expression was unreadable. "You're either very brave or very stupid." "Can it be both?" That earned a genuine smile. "Yeah, it can." Clutch held out his hand. "The evidence." Caleb hesitated for just a moment, then handed over the leather roll. Clutch weighed it in his hands, then nodded to one of the other bikers who dismounted and came forward. The man was smaller than Clutch, but moved with a coiled energy that reminded Caleb of a rattlesnake. "This is Razor," Clutch said. "He's going to make copies. Tonight. Then the originals go somewhere safe." Razor took the roll and headed for one of the bikes that had a hard case mounted on the back. He pulled out a portable scanner and got to work right there, the device's light glowing in the darkness. Clutch turned back to Caleb. "Arthur said you're a mechanic." "Yeah, I work for my uncle." "You any good?" The question was so unexpected that Caleb almost laughed. "I mean, yeah, I'm pretty good." "Custom work?" "Some, mostly repairs and rebuilds." "Why?" Clutch studied him for a long moment. "Because after this is over, you're going to need a new life. Dalton's not the forgiving type, even from prison. And your uncle?" He glanced toward the dark shop building. "He's not going to want you around and once the heat comes down." "Vernon already told me as much," Caleb admitted quietly. "Thought so. Saw him peeking through the office window when we rolled up. Man looked like he was about to have a heart attack." Clutch's expression softened slightly. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to lay low for a few days. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't talk to Dalton if he shows up. Don't talk to anyone except us and your lawyer." "I don't have a lawyer." "You do now. We'll send someone over tomorrow." Clutch pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "In the meantime, you got a weapon." "Hey, what? A gun, kid? You got a gun?" Caleb shook his head. "Never needed one." "You need one now." Clutch nodded to another biker who reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small black case. He handed it to Caleb, who opened it to find a compact 9mm pistol and 2 boxes of ammunition. "I don't know how to point and pull." "That is, sir, that's all you need to know for now." Clutch's voice was firm. "Keep it close. If Dalton shows up before we can get the feds involved, you defend yourself. Understand?" Caleb stared at the gun like it was a live snake. "This is amazing. Welcome to the deep end, kid." Clutch clapped him on the shoulder, the impact nearly buckling Caleb's knees. "You did good today. Saved a good man's life. Now we're going to make sure that means something." Razor finished scanning and brought the leather roll back. "All done, crystal clear copies." "Good." Clutch took the originals and handed them back to Caleb. "Hide these. Somewhere Dalton would never think to look. We got copies going out tonight to 6 different federal agencies, but you keep the originals safe. Just in case." "In case of what?" "In case we all end up dead," Clutch said matter-of-factly. "Then you take them to the media. Every news station, every newspaper. You make sure the world knows what Dalton did." The weight of it settled on Caleb's shoulders like a physical thing. "Why me? Why not keep them yourself?" "Because you're nobody," Clutch said not unkindly. "No offense, but you're a 19-year-old mechanic in a nothing town. Nobody's watching you. Nobody expects you to be important. That makes you the perfect dead drop." He paused. "Also, Arthur trusts you. And if Arthur trusts you, that's good enough for me." The bike started up again, a wave of rumbling thunder. Clutch swung his leg over his Harley, then looked back at Caleb one more time. "Few days," he said, "and this'll all be over in a few days. Stay alive until then. And if Dalton comes tonight," Clutch's smile was cold, "then you use that gun and you call this number." He handed Caleb a card with nothing but a phone number written on it. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. Maybe 15 if we ride hard. 20 minutes is a long time when someone's trying to kill you." "Then don't let them." Clutch kicked his bike into gear. And Caleb, welcome to the family, whether you wanted it or not. The bikes pulled out in formation, their taillights disappearing down the highway like red eyes fading into the night. Caleb stood in his doorway holding a leather roll full of secrets in one hand and a gun in the other, and wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. Inside his trailer, he stared at the evidence for a long time before finally hiding it in the one place he figured Dalton would never look, inside the false bottom of his toolbox, wrapped in oil-stained rags and tucked beneath his socket set. The gun went under his pillow. Sleep didn't come. Every sound was a threat: the wind against the siding, a car passing on the distant highway, Vernon's shop door creaking in the breeze. Caleb lay in the darkness, his hand curled around the grip of the 9mm, and waited for morning. It came eventually, pale light filtering through his dingy curtains. Caleb dragged himself out of bed and splashed water on his face, trying to wash away the grit of sleeplessness and fear. Vernon was waiting outside, leaning against his truck with his arms crossed. His face was drawn, older looking than Caleb had ever seen it. "They came last night," Vernon said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah. And you gave them what they wanted." "Some of it." Vernon's jaw tightened. "Caleb, I need you to understand something. I built this business from nothing, 30 years of work, and I can't lose it because my nephew decided to play hero." "I didn't decide anything. A man was dying, and now you're in bed with the Hells Angels and on the bad side of a corrupt sheriff." Vernon's voice rose. "Do you get how that ends? It ends with you dead and me losing everything because I'm associated with you." The words stung, but Caleb kept his voice level. "So what do you want me to do?" "I want you to leave. Today. Right now." Vernon pulled an envelope from his pocket and thrust it at Caleb. "There's $1,000 in there. Take it, take your truck, and go. California, New Mexico, Texas. I don't care. Just get far away from here." Caleb took the envelope, feeling its weight. $1,000. His severance package and ticket out. "And if I don't, then you're fired anyway, and you got nothing." Vernon's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, kid. I really am. But I got to protect what's mine." "I get it." And strangely, Caleb did. Vernon wasn't a bad man, just a scared one. "I'll be out by noon." Packing didn't take long. 19 years of life fit into 2 duffel bags and a backpack. Caleb loaded them into his truck, a '98 Ford Ranger that ran more on prayer than gasoline, and took one last look at the trailer that had been home. He was pulling out of the lot when a white Crown Victoria with a light bar on top pulled in, blocking his exit. Sheriff Dalton stepped out, and Caleb's hand instinctively moved toward the gun hidden under his seat. Dalton was tall, clean-shaven, with the kind of face that probably looked trustworthy to most people. But his eyes were flat and empty as he approached Caleb's truck. "Caleb Hayes," Dalton said pleasantly. "Mind if we talk for a minute?" Every instinct screamed at Caleb to gun it, to smash through the fence and run. But running would confirm everything. So he forced himself to nod. "Sure, Sheriff." Dalton leaned against the truck, casual as anything. "Hell of a thing yesterday. That accident?" "Yeah. Paramedics tell me you saved that biker's life. That was real brave. Just did what anyone would do." "Not anyone." Dalton's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Most people would have called 911 and waited, but you got right in there. Got yourself all bloody." He paused. Must have been hard watching a man die like that. "He didn't die." "Not yet." The words hung in the air like a threat. "But he's in rough shape. Might not make it." Dalton's gaze sharpened. "Course, if he does, I'm sure he'll want to thank you proper. Hell's Angels are real particular about debts." Caleb's mouth was dry, so "I wouldn't know." "No," Dalton straightened up. "Funny thing, someone reported seeing motorcycles out here last night. Whole bunch of us surrounding your trailer." He let that sink in. "You wouldn't know anything about that either, would you?" "People ride motorcycles." "They do." Dalton nodded slowly. "They surely do. And sometimes when a Hell's Angel gets hurt, his brothers come looking for answers. Looking for things." There it was, the real question underneath all the pleasantries. "I don't know what you mean," Caleb said. "I think you do." Dalton's pleasant mask slipped just a fraction. "See, Arthur Caldwell is a very interesting man, did some very interesting work, kept very interesting records. And those records, if they exist, they'd be real valuable to certain people, real dangerous to others." "Sounds complicated." "It is." Dalton leaned in close enough that Caleb could smell his cologne. So here's what's going to happen, son. You're going to tell me if Arthur gave you anything yesterday. Papers, a bag, a flash drive, anything. And if he did, you're going to give it to me. Right now. And then you're going to drive away and forget this ever happened. Caleb met his eyes. And if I don't, Dalton's smile was terrible. And then you're going to have a real unfortunate accident, just like Arthur. This highway's dangerous, you know. Trucks swerve all the time. The threat was crystal clear. Caleb's hand inched toward the gun. I wouldn't, Dalton said softly. I got 2 deputies parked on the highway. You pull a weapon on me, they'll put you down before you can blink. And I'll swear you were high on meth and tried to rob me. He tapped the truck's hood. So, what's it gonna be? Caleb's mind raced. If he gave up the evidence, Dalton would kill him anyway. He knew too much. But if he refused, Dalton would tear the truck apart right here and probably find it. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text. He pulled it out slowly, keeping his other hand visible. The text was from the number Clutch had given him. Stall him. Help coming. Caleb looked up at Dalton and did something that surprised even himself. He laughed. What's funny? Dalton's voice was cold. You are. Caleb put the phone down. You really think you're going to get away with this? You really think nobody knows what you did? I think a lot of people suspect a lot of things, but suspicion ain't proof. And proof's in Arthur's saddlebag, which the Hells Angels have now. Caleb watched Dalton's face go pale. You're done, Sheriff. You just don't know it yet. Dalton's hand moved to his service weapon. You stupid kid. You have any idea what you've... The rumble of engines cut him off. Distant at first, then growing louder. Closer. Dalton spun around and his face went slack with shock. They came over the rise like an army. Not 20 bikes this time. Not 50. 230 Hells Angels riding in formation, filling the highway from shoulder to shoulder. The sound was apocalyptic, a sustained roar that shook the ground and rattled the shop's windows. Dalton's hand fell away from his gun. His deputies' cars screeched into the lot, but they took one look at the approaching horde and didn't move. The bikes surrounded the lot boxing in Dalton's Crown Vic and the deputies' vehicles. They idled there, a wall of leather and chrome and barely contained violence. Clutch dismounted and walked through the circle of bikes. Behind him came Arthur, moving slowly, wrapped in bandages, but alive and on his feet. Sheriff Dalton, Clutch said, we need to talk about attempted murder. Dalton's hand moved back toward his gun, but Arthur's voice stopped him cold. I wouldn't, Sheriff. Not unless you want 230 witnesses to watch you commit suicide by cop. Arthur's voice was weak but steady. Each word cost him, but he pushed through. Because that's what it'll be. The second you draw, every man here becomes a witness to you pulling a weapon on an unarmed civilian. Dalton's hand froze. His eyes darted between Arthur, Clutch, and the sea of bikers surrounding them. You're supposed to be dead. Yeah, well, funny thing about that. Arthur took a painful step forward, his hand pressed against his bandaged side. Turns out when you hire cartel hitmen instead of doing your own dirty work, sometimes they miss. Sometimes a 19-year-old kid with more guts than sense keeps you breathing long enough for your brothers to find you. I don't know what you're talking about. Dalton's voice had gone tight, controlled. I'm investigating a hit and run. You were the victim. Was I? Arthur's laugh turned into a cough and Clutch steadied him. Because I remember seeing your face behind that wheel, Dalton. Clear as day. I remember you looking right at me before you swerved. That's ridiculous. I was on patrol 20 miles from here. In your personal vehicle, Clutch pulled out his phone and held up a photo. Black Silverado license plate 7 Alpha Delta 823. Registered to you. Spotted by 3 different traffic cameras, heading south on Route 87, exactly 17 minutes before Arthur got hit. He swiped to another photo. Here you are at the Chevron station 10 miles north, filling up. Timestamp puts you 5 minutes from the crash site. Dalton's face went white, then red. Those could be doctored. They're not. A new voice cut through the tension. A woman in a gray suit stepped out of an unmarked sedan that had pulled up during the confrontation. She held up a badge. DEA Special Agent Reeves. Sheriff Dalton, we've been building a case against you for 8 months. Thanks to the evidence Mr. Caldwell collected and the copies the Hells Angels so thoughtfully sent us last night, we have enough to put you away for the rest of your life. Dalton took a step back, his eyes wild. This is entrapment. This is over, Reeves said flatly. You are under arrest for attempted murder conspiracy to distribute narcotics racketeering and about 40 other charges my team is still cataloging. She nodded to two agents who'd emerged from the sedan. Cuff him. My deputies are being arrested as we speak, Reeves interrupted. State police have them surrounded on the highway. Your whole operation is done, Dalton. One of the deputies in the lot made a move toward his vehicle, but three bikers stepped in front of him, arms crossed. The deputy froze, hands visible. Don't, Clutch said mildly. You ain't got anywhere to run, and we ain't in the mood to chase you. The agents moved toward Dalton, who backed against his Crown Vic. You can't prove anything. You've got hearsay and fake evidence planted by criminals. We got your bank records, Reeves said. Offshore accounts in the Caymans with deposits matching exactly the amounts listed in Arthur's ledgers. We've got testimony from 3 cartel members who flipped the moment we offered them deals. We've got wiretaps of you coordinating shipments. She stepped closer. And we've got you on camera running down a federal informant. So yeah, Sheriff, we can prove it. The word federal informant sent a ripple through the bikers. Several turned to look at Arthur, who grimaced. Surprise, Arthur muttered. 20 years Phoenix PD, 5 years undercover DEA. Sorry, brothers. Had to keep that one quiet. You son of a bitch, one of the bikers said, but there was more admiration than anger in his voice. 5 years of church meetings and runs, and you never broke character once. He didn't know, Clutch said, looking at Arthur. Did he? When you patched in command, didn't tell us. Couldn't risk it, Arthur admitted. The less you knew, the safer you were. But everything I did, every ride, every vote, that was real. I meant it. He met Clutch's eyes. You're my brothers. That wasn't a lie. Clutch studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You bled with us. That's real enough. Dalton lunged suddenly, not for his gun, but for Caleb's truck. His hand closed around the door handle, jerking it open. The originals, where are they? Where are the originals? Caleb's hand found the 9mm under his seat, but Arthur was faster despite his injuries. He crossed the distance in 3 agonizing steps and slammed Dalton against the truck. You don't touch him, Arthur growled. He saved my life. That puts him under our protection. You so much as breathe on him again, and I don't care what badge you wear, there won't be enough left of you to arrest. Arthur, stand down. Reeves's voice was sharp. We do this by the book. He tried to kill me, and he'll spend the rest of his life in prison for it. But we don't give defense attorneys ammunition. Reeves nodded to her agents, who finally got the cuffs on Dalton. Sheriff Dalton, you have the right to remain silent. This isn't over. Dalton twisted against the cuffs, his composure completely shattered. You think the cartel's just gonna let this go? You think they're gonna let all of you just walk away? They'll come for every single person here. They'll burn this whole town too. One of the agents shoved him into the back seat and slammed the door, cutting off the tirade. The silence that followed was heavy. Reeves turned to Clutch. The cartel, how much do they know? About the evidence, nothing yet. About Dalton getting arrested. Clutch checked his phone. They'll know in about 20 minutes when it hits the news. And when they find out, they'll either cut in their losses and ghost, or they'll come looking for loose ends. Clutch's expression was grim. My money's on option 2. They got too much invested in this pipeline to just walk away. Reeves swore under her breath. How many are we talking about? Local crew, maybe 8-10 guys, but they can call in reinforcements from Sonora. Could be 50, could be 100. Arthur leaned heavily against the truck, his face gray. They won't come in guns blazing, though. Too much heat. They'll pick people off quiet-like. Make it look like accidents. Starting with the witnesses, Reeves said, looking at Caleb. You got somewhere safe to go, son? Caleb's mouth was dry. I was leaving town when Dalton showed up. No. Clutch's voice was firm. You're staying here, where we can protect you. I can arrange a safe house, Reeves offered. Witness protection protocols. With respect, Aiden, how many safe houses you think the cartels burn through? Clutch shook his head. Kid stays with us. We got a clubhouse 20 miles south, reinforced walls, armed guards, and enough firepower to hold off an army. Your safe house got that. Reeves looked like she wanted to argue, but Arthur cut in. He's right. Cartels got informants everywhere, police marshals, even some feds. No offense. Some taken, Reeves said dryly. But point made. Caleb stays with you, but I want daily check-ins, and if anything happens, anything, you call me first. No cowboy justice. Scout's honor, Clutch said with a straight face. You were never a Boy Scout. True, but the sentiment stands. Vernon had been watching from the shop doorway, his face a mask of terror. Now he stepped forward hesitantly. What about me? My business. They'll come here looking for the kid. They might, Reeves acknowledged. I can arrange police protection. Yeah, that worked real well with Dalton, Vernon snapped. Then catching himself, sorry, I got a life here. Then close up shop for a few weeks, Clutch suggested. Take a vacation, visit family, whatever. Just be somewhere else until this shakes out. Vernon looked at Caleb and something passed between them. Years of shared history, the complicated love of family, and the fear of what was coming. I'm sorry, kid, for kicking you out. I was scared. I know, Caleb said quietly. It's okay. It's not okay. Your daddy would have been ashamed of me. Vernon pulled out his keys and handed them to Caleb. Shop's yours while I'm gone. You need tools, parts, whatever, take them. Just stay alive, yeah. Caleb took the keys, his throat tight. Yeah, you too, Uncle Vernon. Vernon nodded once, then hurried to his own truck and peeled out of the lot like the devil was chasing him. Maybe he was. Reeves's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, and her expression darkened. Understood. Keep me posted. She hung up and looked at the assembled group. That was my tactical team. They just raided Dalton's house, found maps, surveillance photos, and a burner phone with text coordinating the hit on Arthur. Also found a go bag with $200,000 in cash and a plane ticket to Panama. Was gonna run, Arthur said. Probably why he tried to kill me yesterday. Tie up loose ends before disappearing. Most likely, Reeves gestured to her sedan. I need to get back to Phoenix, coordinate the takedown of the rest of Dalton's network. Arthur, you should come with me. Get proper medical attention. I'm fine. You're bleeding through your bandages. Arthur looked down at the spreading red stain on his side and grimaced. Okay, I'm moderately fine. Hospital. Now. Reeves turned to Clutch. You've got my number. Anything happens, you call. Will do. Clutch watched as Arthur limped toward the sedan, then called out, Hey, Arthur. Arthur turned. You ever want to ride with us again? For real this time? You got a patch waiting. Clutch's voice was gruff but sincere. What you did going undercover, living that lie for 5 years, that took guts. You earned your place. Arthur's smile was tired but genuine. Thanks, brother. Might take you up on that when this is over. The sedan pulled away, followed by the Crown Vic with Dalton cuffed in the back seat. The other deputies were loaded into state police cruisers that had materialized from the highway. As the official vehicles disappeared, the tension in the lot shifted. The bikers who'd been still as statues suddenly came alive, engines revving, voices calling out. All right, brothers, let's roll. Clutch swung onto his bike. Caleb, you tried with Tiny. A massive biker, easily 6'8" and 300 pounds, pulled up on a Harley with a passenger seat. The irony of his road name wasn't lost on Caleb. You ever been on a bike? Tiny asked. His voice was surprisingly soft, almost gentle. Couple times. Friend had a dirt bike in high school. This ain't a dirt bike, Tiny grinned. Hold on tight and lean when I lean. Don't fight it. Caleb climbed on behind Tiny, his heart hammering. His truck sat abandoned in the lot, everything he owned still packed in the bed. Don't worry about it, Tiny said, reading his expression. Someone will bring it to the clubhouse. We take care of our own. I'm not one of your own. You saved Arthur's life. That makes you family whether you signed up for it or not. Tiny kicked the bike into gear. Now hold on, kid. We're burning daylight. The ride south was unlike anything Caleb had ever experienced. 230 motorcycles moving in formation, the roar of engines drowning out everything else. They rode in tight groups, 5 across, maintaining perfect spacing, communicating through hand signals Caleb didn't understand. People pulled over to watch them pass. Some took photos. Others just stared, mouths open. They're wondering if it's a funeral or a war party, Tiny shouted over the engine noise. Which is it? Caleb shouted back. Little bit of both, probably. The clubhouse turned out to be a sprawling compound surrounded by an 8-foot fence topped with razor wire. Guard towers stood at 2 corners, actual guard towers with armed men in them. The main building was concrete and steel, built like a bunker. Jesus, Caleb breathed as they pulled through the gate. We take security serious, Tiny said, especially now. Inside, the clubhouse was surprisingly well appointed. Leather couches, a full bar pool tables and walls, covered with patches, photos, and memorabilia from decades of riding. But there were also gun safes, lots of them, and Caleb spotted security monitors showing every angle of the perimeter. Clutch was already inside talking on 3 phones at once. He waved Caleb over. "Caleb, this is Wrath. He's our head of security." Clutch gestured to a scarred man with cold eyes. "Wrath, this is the kid who saved Arthur. He's under our protection." Wrath looked Caleb up and down like he was evaluating a threat. "You know how to use that gun you're carrying?" Caleb's hand instinctively went to his waistband where he'd tucked the 9mm. "Not really." "Then you're going to learn. Range is out back. We start in an hour." Wrath walked away without waiting for a response. "He's friendly once you get to know him," Clutch said. "When does that happen?" "Usually after you save his life or he saves yours, so give it time." Clutch hung up one phone and immediately answered another. Yeah, I know. "Look, just tell them we've got it handled. Because I said so, that's why." "Fine, put him on." He covered the phone and said to Caleb, "Make yourself at home. Food's in the kitchen rooms upstairs. Pick an empty one." Caleb wandered through the clubhouse feeling completely out of place. Bikers nodded to him as he passed, some offering handshakes. Others just silent acknowledgement. He found the kitchen and grabbed a Coke, his hand shaking slightly as he opened it. "First time in a clubhouse." A woman's voice made him turn. She was maybe 40 with long dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. "I'm Stella. I run the bar here." "Caleb, I know who you are. Whole club knows." She poured herself coffee. "You're the talk of the day." Kid who saved Arthur stood up to Dalton and didn't piss himself when 200 bikers showed up. "That's impressive." "I was terrified." "But you didn't show it. That's what counts." Stella studied him. "How old are you really?" 19. "Christ, you're just a baby." She said it kindly without condescension. "And now you're in the middle of a war you didn't ask for." "Story of my week." That got a laugh. "Fair enough. Well, you're safe here. These walls are solid guards, are good, and every man in this club would die before letting the cartel touch you." "That's not empty talk, that's blood oath serious." "Why?" Caleb asked. "I mean, I appreciate it, but why go this far for someone you don't know?" Stella's expression softened. "Because Arthur's one of us. Was his doesn't matter. He rode with us, bled with us, and you saved him. That creates a debt." She paused. "Also, most of these guys got kids, some your age. They look at you and they see their own sons. So yeah, they'll protect you. It's what we do." A commotion outside cut their conversation short. Shouting engines, the sound of the gate opening. Caleb followed Stella to the window. A convoy of trucks was pulling in pickup trucks loaded with supplies, followed by more motorcycles. "Reinforcements," Stella explained. "Clutch called in the other charters. Vegas, San Diego, even some boys from Oregon. By tonight, we'll have 400 bikers here. For one kid. For the principal." Stella's voice was firm. "Cartel thinks they can hit one of ours and walk away. We're about to teach them different." The next few hours were a blur. Caleb was taken to the range where Wrath spent 90 brutal minutes teaching him to shoot. His ears rang despite the protection his hands ached from the recoil, but by the end he could hit a man-sized target at 20 yards more often than not. "You're not going to win any competitions," Wrath said, "but you won't shoot yourself in the foot either. Keep it close, keep it ready, and if someone comes at you, you empty the whole damn magazine into them. Understood?" "Understood." Back inside, someone had brought his truck around. Caleb unloaded his bags and was assigned a room on the second floor. Small, clean, with a single window that looked out over the compound. He tested the mattress and nearly wept at how comfortable it was compared to his trailer. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Agent Reeves, checking in. You okay?" He texted back. "Yeah, at the clubhouse. They've got me learning to shoot." "Good. You might need it." Cartel put a price on Arthur's head. $50,000. You're probably on the list too. Caleb's blood went cold. How much unknown, but assume that they want you dead. Great. Stay inside. Stay alert. Don't trust anyone outside the club. I'll update you when I know more. Caleb sat on the bed staring at his phone. $50,000 for Arthur. How much for a nobody kid who just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time? A knock at the door made him jump. Yeah. Tiny poked his head in. "Church in 5, Clutch wants you there." Church club meeting. Normally prospects and outsiders ain't allowed, but you're a special case. Tiny's expression was serious. They're going to vote on what to do about the cartel. You should hear it. The chapel, they actually called it, that was a large room with a circular table surrounded by chairs. Each chair had a nameplate: President, Vice President, Road Captain, Sergeant at Arms. The walls were decorated with more patches and photos, including one of Arthur smiling at a run from a few years back. Caleb was directed to a chair against the wall. Tiny sat beside him, arms crossed. Clutch banged a gavel on the table. Brothers, we got a situation. Arthur's alive, Dalton's arrested, but the cartel's still out there. They got people in this county, this state, and they're going to come looking for payback. Let them come, someone growled. We'll be ready. We will, Clutch agreed, but we also got an innocent kid caught in the middle. Caleb didn't ask for this. He just tried to save a dying man. Now he's got a target on his back because he did the right thing. So what are you proposing? This from an older biker with gray in his beard. We go to war over one kid. We go to war over the principal. Clutch corrected. Today it's Caleb. Tomorrow it's one of our families. The cartel needs to know that you don't mess with the Hells Angels and walk away. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. I say we hit them first, another voice called out. We know where their stash houses are. We burn them out and bring every Fed in the Southwest down on us. Clutch shook his head. We're working with the DEA now, brothers. We play this smart. We protect our people, we gather intel, and we let the law handle the arrests. But if the cartel comes at us directly, if they step foot on our property or threaten our families, then we defend ourselves. Agreed. A chorus of agreed and banging fists on the table. Motion carries. Clutch looked directly at Caleb. You're under our protection until this is resolved. That means you don't leave this compound without an escort. You don't talk to anyone outside the club. And you do exactly what Wrath tells you when it comes to security. Clear, Caleb stood. Clear, and thank you, all of you. I don't know how I'll ever... You already did, Clutch interrupted gently. You saved Arthur. That's enough. The meeting broke up, and Caleb was heading back to his room when Tiny stopped him. You eat yet? No. Come on, Stella's cooking. You don't want to miss that. Dinner was served family style in the main room, huge platters of barbecue cornbread, mac and cheese, and enough beer to float a boat. Caleb found himself squeezed between Tiny and a biker named Joker, who told increasingly inappropriate stories that had the whole table laughing. For a few hours, Caleb almost forgot he was hiding from a drug cartel. Then his phone buzzed again. Agent Reeves' situation update. Cartel crew spotted heading south from Phoenix. 8 vehicles, heavily armed. ETA to your area 2 hours. Caleb showed the text to Tiny, who immediately stood and whistled sharply. The room went silent. We got incoming, Tiny announced. 2 hours out, 8 vehicles, heavy weapons. The transformation was instant. Laughter died, beers were set down, men moved with purpose toward the gun safes. Clutch appeared at Caleb's side. You good with that 9mm Wrath gave you? I guess. Then keep it close, but stay inside no matter what happens. You hear gunfire, you hit the floor, and you stay down. Understood. What about you, guys? Clutch's smile was cold and hard. We're about to remind the cartel why you don't fuck with Hell's Angels. The compound transformed into a war zone in under 10 minutes. Caleb watched from his second-floor window as bikers hauled crates of weapons from storage buildings he hadn't even noticed before. AR-15 shotguns, hunting rifles, enough firepower to outfit a small militia. Jesus Christ, he whispered. Nah, just prepared. Wrath appeared in his doorway carrying a tactical vest. Put this on. I thought I was staying inside. You are, but bullets don't care about walls. Wrath tossed him the vest. Kevlar. Won't stop a rifle round, but it'll keep pistol fire from punching holes in your lungs. Now put it on and get away from that window. Caleb fumbled with the straps, his fingers clumsy with adrenaline. Below, he could hear Clutch barking orders, assigning positions, coordinating with someone on the phone. State police are 20 minutes out. Clutch's voice carried up the stairs. DEA's 30. We hold until they get here. And if the cartel hits us before that, someone called back, then we make them regret every mile they drove. Tiny appeared at Caleb's door, next carrying a radio. Channel 3. You hear anything weird? Anything at all, you call it in. Someone shoots at this building, you hit the deck and stay there. Don't be a hero. Wasn't planning on it. Good, because Arthur already used up this month's quota of heroics. Tiny's attempt at humor fell flat. His eyes were too serious, too focused. You got enough ammo for that 9mm. Caleb pulled out the gun and checked. 1 magazine and 1 spare. That's 30 rounds. Make them count if it comes to that. Tiny gripped his shoulder, but it won't come to that. We got this. The minutes crawled by like hours. Caleb sat on his bed vest on gun in hand, listening to the radio chatter. Perimeter check northwest. Clear. Southeast. Clear. Wake got headlights. 2 miles out on County Road 12. Clutch's voice cut through the chatter. Everyone hold position. Don't engage until they make a move. Caleb's heart hammered against his ribs. He moved to the corner of the room farthest from the window and crouched there trying to remember everything Wrath had taught him. Breathe, aim center mass, squeeze, don't pull. His phone buzzed. Agent Reeves State Police delayed. Accident on I-10, ETA. Now 35 minutes. Shit, Caleb muttered, typing back, cartel's almost here. I know, hold tight, backup is coming. 35 minutes, the cartel would be here in 5. Contact, the radio crackled. 8 vehicles, black SUVs, turning onto our access road. Everyone weapons hot, Clutch ordered, but nobody fires unless fired upon. Let's see what they want. What they want? Caleb almost laughed. They wanted him dead. They wanted Arthur dead. They wanted to erase every witness and every piece of evidence that could connect them to Dalton's operation. The sound of engines grew louder, closer. Caleb risked a glance out the window and immediately wished he hadn't. The SUVs were massive tinted windows, dark as oil. They stopped just outside the compound's gate, arranged in a semicircle like they were preparing for a siege. Nothing happened for a long minute. Then the doors of the lead SUV opened and 3 men stepped out. They wore tactical gear, body armor, helmets, the works. The center man held a megaphone. We're looking for Caleb Hayes, the voice boomed across the compound. Send him out and nobody gets hurt. Clutch stepped into view, standing at the gate with his arms crossed. You're trespassing on private property. Turn around and leave. We just want the kid. Yeah, well, the kid doesn't want you, so here's how this is going to go. You're going to get back in your vehicles and disappear. Because in about 30 minutes, this place is going to be crawling with federal agents and state police. You really want to be here when they arrive. The man with the megaphone laughed. 30 minutes is plenty of time. For what? To burn this whole place down and everyone in it. The man gestured, and the other SUVs disgorged their passengers. Caleb counted 20 men, all armed with automatic weapons. Shit's about to get real, Tiny's voice came over the radio. Caleb, you stay put and stay down. The cartel soldier raised the megaphone again. Last chance. Send out the kid, or we come in and take him. Come ahead and try, Clutch said. His voice was calm, almost bored. But I should warn you, you're not the first group of assholes to roll up here thinking you're tough. Last one's left in ambulances. You're outnumbered. Am I? Clutch raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Floodlights blazed to life, illuminating the entire compound. In their harsh glare, Caleb could see what the cartel soldiers couldn't have known. Bikers positioned on rooftops behind vehicles in the guard towers. Rifles glinted in the light. And there weren't 20 or 30 of them. There were hundreds. The lead cartel soldier's confidence wavered visibly. This is insane. You're protecting a nobody kid. He's not nobody to us, Clutch interrupted. He saved one of our brothers. That makes him family, and we don't abandon family. The cartel has deep pockets. We can make this worth your while. The Hells Angels don't negotiate with drug dealers. Clutch's voice hardened. You got 10 seconds to get back in those trucks and leave. 10, 9. The cartel soldiers looked at each other, uncertainty rippling through their ranks. They'd come expecting a fight, but not this. Not 400 armed bikers ready to die defending a stranger. 8, 7. You're making a mistake, the lead soldier said, but his voice had lost its edge. 6, 5, booyah. The soldier raised his weapon. Then you all die. The shot came from one of the guard towers. Single precise. The bullet punched through the megaphone, shattering it and sending the soldier stumbling backward. That was a warning shot, Wrath's voice called from the tower. Next one goes through your skull. For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. The cartel soldiers had their weapons up, the bikers had theirs trained in response. One trigger pull would turn the night into a massacre. Then a new sound cut through the tension, helicopter rotors growing louder. "This is the DEA," a voice blared from a loudspeaker in the sky. "All armed personnel, drop your weapons and get on the ground. This compound is surrounded." The helicopter swooped low, its spotlight pinning the cartel vehicles. Behind them on the access road, a convoy of federal vehicles screamed into view, SWAT vans, armored trucks, agents in tactical gear. The lead cartel soldier looked up at the helicopter, then at Clutch, then at his own men. Whatever calculation he made ended with him slowly lowering his weapon. On the ground, EA agents were pouring out of vehicles, weapons drawn. The cartel soldiers dropped their guns and hit the dirt, hands behind their heads. It was over in seconds, 20 armed men neutralized without a shot fired beyond Wrath's warning. Agent Reeves emerged from one of the vehicles, her face grim. She walked straight to Clutch. "You called them in." "The second we knew they were coming. Figured you want the arrests more than we wanted the bodies." Clutch nodded toward the prone soldiers. "Though I gotta say it was a close call." "Too close." Reeves turned to her team. "Cuff them all. Read them their rights. And someone get the bomb squad out here. Those SUVs might be wired." "Bomb squad." Caleb's voice cracked as he spoke into the radio. "Did she say bomb squad?" "Cartels love their explosives," and Tiny replied. "Probably had the vehicles rigged to blow if they couldn't take us out with bullets." "Stay inside, kid. This ain't over yet." The next hour was chaos. Bomb techs crawled over the SUVs, finding exactly what Reeves had suspected, enough C4 to level half the compound. The cartel soldiers were loaded into transport vehicles, still silent, still dangerous, even in handcuffs. Caleb finally came downstairs when Tiny gave the all clear. His legs felt like water, his hands still shaking from the adrenaline crash. Stella pressed a whiskey into his palm. "Drink, you've earned it." He downed it in one swallow and immediately regretted it as fire burned down his throat. But it helped somehow, grounded him. Reeves found him in the main room. "You okay?" "Define okay." "Fair point." She sat beside him. "For what it's worth, you handled this better than most trained agents would have. You didn't panic, didn't do anything stupid." "I hid in a corner with a gun." "Exactly. Smart play." Reeves pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. "Recognize any of these men?" The photo showed the cartel soldiers lined up against a wall. Caleb studied each face and shook his head. "Never seen them before." "Good. Means they don't know you either. Probably just hired guns following orders." She swiped to another photo, this one of a different man, older with cold eyes and a scar running down his cheek. "What about him?" "No, who is he?" "Miguel Cordero, head of the Sonora Cartel's Arizona operations." "These soldiers answer to him?" Reeves's expression was grim. "We've been trying to nail him for 5 years. Dalton was our way in, and you handing over that evidence was the key. But Cordero's smart. He's already gone to ground." Meaning he's the real threat. Dalton was just a corrupt cop. These soldiers were just muscle. But Cordero, he's the one who ordered the hit on Arthur. He's the one who put a price on your head. And he's still out there. Caleb's stomach dropped. "So this isn't over?" "Not even close." Reeves stood. "But we got his men. We got his vehicles. We got enough evidence from the SUVs to connect him to 3 different homicides and 2 kidnappings. We're closing in, just need time." "How much time?" "Days, maybe a week." She squeezed his shoulder. "Stay here. Stay safe. We'll get him." After Reeves left, Clutch called another church meeting. This time the mood was different, victorious but wary. They'd won the battle, but everyone knew the war wasn't finished. "Miguel Cordero's still breathing," Clutch said without preamble. "That means the threat's still real. I'm implementing full lockdown protocols. Nobody in or out without clearance. Guards doubled on all shifts. And Caleb," he looked directly at him, "you don't leave the compound for any reason. Not until Cordero's either arrested or dead." "How long could that take?" Caleb asked. "However long it takes." Clutch's tone left no room for argument. "You got a problem with that." Caleb thought about his truck, his life, his freedom. Then he thought about Miguel Cordero and those dead eyes in the photo. "No problem." "Good. Meeting adjourned." The days that followed blurred together. Caleb fell into a routine wake-up breakfast with the club shooting practice with Wrath lunch, more training dinner, then fitful sleep interrupted by nightmares of black SUVs and men with guns. On the third day, Tiny taught him basic motorcycle maintenance. Might as well learn something useful while you're here. I know cars, Caleb protested, but he followed Tiny to the garage anyway. The Harleys were beautiful machines, chrome and steel and power. Tiny walked him through the basics, oil changes, brake maintenance, tire pressure. It was almost meditative working with his hands on something that wasn't trying to kill him. You got talent, Tiny observed watching Caleb adjust a carburetor. Natural feel for it. My dad was a mechanic, taught me young. He's still around. Died 3 years ago, aneurysm, just dropped one day at work. Caleb's hands stilled on the wrench. Mom died 6 months later, cancer. So it's just been me and Uncle Vernon since then. That's rough, kid, I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Caleb went back to work, not wanting to dwell on it. On the 5th day, Arthur showed up. He was still pale, still moving carefully but alive and grinning. The compound erupted in celebration, backslapping, bear hugs, enough noise to wake the dead. Arthur found Caleb in the garage. Hey, kid, you're supposed to be in the hospital. I was. Got boring. Arthur eased himself onto a stool, wincing. Besides, wanted to thank you proper. You saved my life. You already thanked me. Not enough. Arthur pulled something from his pocket, a small leather wallet. He opened it to reveal a badge, DEA Special Agent Arthur Caldwell. 25 years in law enforcement. 5 of them undercover with some of the most dangerous men in the country. And I almost bled out on a highway because I got cocky because I thought Dalton wouldn't actually pull the trigger. He didn't. He ran you down. Semantics. Arthur smiled sadly. Point is, you didn't have to stop. You didn't have to help. But you did. And that choice, that split-second decision to be a good person when it would have been easier to walk away, that's what brought down Dalton's entire operation. That's what's going to bring down Cordero. Cordero's still out there. Not for long. Arthur's expression hardened. We got word today. Mexico's cooperating. They've got him boxed in near Hermosillo. Mexican federales and DEA are moving in tonight. Caleb's heart leaped. Really? By morning this'll all be over. Arthur stood extending his hand. And you'll be free to leave. Live your life, though he paused. Clutch wanted me to mention something. What? We got a custom bike shop in Phoenix. Real high-end stuff. Builds for celebrities, professional riders. Owner's looking for a talented mechanic who can also do design work. Arthur's eyes twinkled. Job pays 70 grand a year plus bonuses. Full benefits. Apartment included. Caleb's jaw dropped. Are you serious? Dead serious. You earned it. You want it, it's yours. I don't know what to say. Say yes, or say you need time to think. Either way, the offer stands. Arthur gripped his shoulder. You got a future kid. A real one. Don't waste it fixing junkers in the middle of nowhere. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Phoenix. About a real job, a real life. About leaving behind the auto shop and the trailer and the small, suffocating world he'd known for 19 years. His phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Agent Reeves, it's done. Cordero in custody. No shots fired. You're safe. Caleb read the message 3 times before it sank in. Safe. He was safe. He texted back, thank you. Thank Arthur. And thank yourself for being brave enough to stop when everyone else would have driven past. Caleb put the phone down and for the first time in a week slept dreamlessly. Morning came with celebration. News of Cordero's arrest spread through the compound like wildfire. Bikers who'd been tense and vigilant for days finally relaxed. The lockdown was lifted. Life slowly returned to normal. Clutch found Caleb at breakfast. Heard Arthur made you an offer. Yeah. You gonna take it? Caleb looked around the room at Tiny laughing with some of the other bikers at Stella pouring coffee at Wrath, actually smiling for once. These people had protected him, sheltered him, treated him like family when his own uncle had turned him out. I think so, Caleb said quietly. If the offer's real. It's real, and Kid Clutch's expression was serious. You're always welcome here. You want to ride with us, sometime learn the life, you just say the word. You earn that right. I'm not cut out for the outlaw life. Who said anything about outlaw? Clutch grinned. We're a motorcycle club, not the mafia. Most of us got day jobs, families, mortgages. We just happen to ride together and look out for each other. That's all family is, really. People who show up when it matters. Caleb thought about that. Then yeah, I'd like that. Good. Clutch stood. Now finish eating. We're taking you to Phoenix today. Got to meet your new boss. The ride to Phoenix was different from the ride to the compound. Smaller group, just Clutch, Tiny Wrath, Arthur and a few others. No urgency, no fear. Just the open road and the sun beating down and the wind in Caleb's face. They pulled up to a pristine garage with Desert Dreams custom cycles emblazoned on the sign. Inside, motorcycles gleamed like jewels, custom builds worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The owner, a weathered man named Jack with grease permanently under his fingernails, shook Caleb's hand. Arthur says you're good with your hands. I try. Show me. Jack led him to a partially disassembled Harley. Transmission slipping. Find the problem. Caleb rolled up his sleeves and got to work. It took him 20 minutes, but he found it a worn gear that was catching. Here, needs replacement. Jack examined the gear, then looked at Caleb with new respect. Most mechanics would have spent an hour on that. You got an eye. Job's yours if you want it. I want it. Good. Start Monday. We'll get you set up in the apartment upstairs. Jack paused. And kid, I know what you did for Arthur, what you went through. You need time to process. You need to talk. You need anything. My door's always open. Thank you, sir. Jack, just Jack. He clapped Caleb on the back. Welcome to the family. The apartment was small but clean with actual furniture and a kitchen that didn't have water stains on the ceiling. Caleb stood in the middle of the empty living room, hardly believing this was real. Tiny helped him carry his bags up. Not bad, right? It's perfect. You earned it. Tiny handed him a card. My number. You need anything, and I mean anything you call. Day or night, we're brothers now. I'm not. You saved Arthur's life. You stood up to a corrupt sheriff. You didn't crack when the cartel came for you. Yeah, kid, you're one of us. Tiny pulled him into a crushing hug. Don't be a stranger, yeah. I won't. One by one, the bikers said their goodbyes. Wrath with a gruff nod and a reminder to keep practicing at the range. Stella with a motherly kiss on the cheek and a promise to visit. Even Clutch, who normally kept his emotions locked down tight, gripped Caleb's hand with genuine warmth. You did good, kid. Your parents would be proud. The words hit harder than Caleb expected. His eyes stung. Thank you for everything. Thank you. Not many people would have done what you did. Clutch mounted his bike. We'll see you around, Caleb Hayes. They rode off in formation, engines rumbling, leaving Caleb standing on a Phoenix Street corner with a new job, a new home, and a new family he never saw coming. Arthur stayed behind. You good? Yeah, I think I am. Good, because this is just the beginning. Arthur smiled. You got talent, you got guts, and now you got opportunity. Don't waste it. I won't. I know. Arthur handed him one last thing, a folded piece of paper. Open it later. Then he too rode off, leaving Caleb alone. Inside the apartment, Caleb unfolded the paper. It was a certificate, an honorary Hells Angels support club patch signed by every member who'd protected him. At the bottom, Arthur had written, for the kid who stopped when everyone else kept driving. You saved more than one life that day. You saved all of us. Ride free, brother. Caleb traced the signatures with his finger, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. A week ago, he'd been nobody, a mechanic in a nowhere town with no future. Now he had a family, a purpose, a second chance. He folded the certificate carefully and placed it on his new dresser, right where he'd see it every morning. Tomorrow he'd start his new life. Tonight he'd remember the old one and the choice he'd made on a hot Arizona highway that changed everything. Caleb didn't sleep that first night in Phoenix. He lay on sheets that still smelled like the store, staring at unfamiliar shadows on an unfamiliar ceiling, and tried to convince himself this was real, that he wasn't going to wake up in his trailer with Vernon banging on the door telling him to get to work. At 5 a.m., he gave up pretending and made coffee in a kitchen that actually had counter space. The silence was disorienting. No highway noise, no Vernon's radio playing classic rock too loud. Just quiet. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Caleb Hayes. A woman's voice, professional but warm. This is Linda Chen from the Phoenix District Attorney's Office. I'm handling the prosecution of Sheriff Dalton and his associates. Do you have a few minutes? Caleb's stomach tightened. Yeah, sure. First, I want to thank you for your cooperation with federal agents. The evidence you preserved has been instrumental in building our case. Papers rustled in the background. Second, I need to prepare you for what's coming. Dalton's attorneys are going to argue that the evidence was obtained illegally. They're going to claim Arthur coerced you into handing over materials that belong to their client. That's bullshit. Arthur was dying when he told me to hide it. I know, but defense attorneys don't care about the truth. They care about creating reasonable doubt. Linda's voice softened, which brings me to the difficult part. You're going to have to testify. Grand jury first, then likely at trial. Are you prepared for that? Caleb thought about sitting in a courtroom with Dalton staring at him, about lawyers twisting his words, about every choice he'd made that day being picked apart and questioned. Do I have a choice? Legally, yes, you could refuse to testify, but then Dalton walks free, and every piece of evidence we have becomes inadmissible fruit of the poison tree. She paused. I won't lie to you, Caleb. This won't be easy. Dalton's lawyers are vicious. They'll make you out to be a criminal sympathizer, a Hell's Angels wannabe who fabricated evidence. They'll dig into your life, your family, everything. My parents are dead. There's nothing to dig into. Everyone has something. Linda's tone wasn't unkind, just realistic. But here's what I can promise will prepare you thoroughly. Mock cross-examinations, witness prep, the whole process. You won't walk into that courtroom unprepared. And when it's over, Dalton spends the rest of his life in prison. That's worth fighting for, isn't it? Caleb looked at the certificate on his dresser. Honorary patch. Brother, family. Yeah, it's worth it. Good. Grand jury convenes in 3 weeks. We'll start prep next Monday. I'll send you the details. She hung up before Caleb could respond. He texted Arthur D. I just called. I have to testify. The response came immediately, I know. She called me too. You'll do great, and we'll be there every day of the trial. You won't be alone. Monday morning, Caleb showed up at Desert Dreams at 7 a.m. sharp. Jack was already there, elbow deep in a custom build for some tech millionaire who wanted a motorcycle that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. You're early, Jack observed. Didn't want to be late on my first day. Good attitude. Coffee's in the break room. Help yourself. Then come look at this monstrosity. Jack gestured at the bike. Client wants LED, underglow, carbon fiber, everything, and I shit you not a sound system that can be heard from a quarter mile away. That's awful. That's a $40,000 commission. So we're going to make it the best awful bike in Arizona. Jack grinned. Welcome to custom work, kid. The customer is always right, even when they're completely wrong. The work was different from Vernon's shop. These weren't broken down pickups limping in for oil changes. These were art pieces, engineering marvels, machines that cost more than most people's cars. Caleb felt out of his depth for approximately 15 minutes, then muscle memory took over and his hands remembered what his brain was still learning. By lunch, he had rewired the entire electrical system on the sci-fi bike. Jack inspected his work with a critical eye, looking for flaws, then nodded slowly. Clean, efficient. You color-coded the wires. Makes troubleshooting easier later. Most mechanics don't think that far ahead. Jack clapped him on the shoulder. You're going to do just fine here, kid. The other mechanics, 2 brothers named Carlos and Miguel, and a quiet woman named Sam, who could fabricate anything from sheet metal, welcomed him cautiously. New guy had to prove himself. But by the end of the week, after Caleb diagnosed a phantom electrical fault that had stumped everyone else for 3 days, they started treating him like part of the crew. How'd you figure it out? Sam asked, watching him replace a corroded ground wire. My dad taught me when something doesn't make sense, go back to basics. Electricity needs a path. This one was broken. Caleb tested the circuit. Should be good now. Carlos revved the engine and whooped when everything lit up properly. Kid's a genius. Kid's got a name, Caleb said, but he was smiling. That weekend, Tiny showed up at the shop riding a gorgeous Road King with saddlebags stuffed full of beer. Brought provisions, he announced, and an invitation. We're having a run next Saturday, Phoenix to Sedona and back. You should come. I don't have a bike. So ride with me, or Tiny's grin widened. Jack's got that old Softail in the back gathering dust. Maybe he'd let you borrow it, for a price. Jack, who'd been eavesdropping, called out, Price is you, fix the transmission. Been slipping for months and I haven't had time. Deal, Caleb said before he could overthink it. The transmission took him 3 evenings working late, but he got it done. The Softail was a 2003 older but solid with good bones under the neglect. When he finally got it running smooth, the rumble of the engine made something in his chest settle into place. That's your bike now, Jack said, watching him test ride it around the parking lot. Caleb nearly crashed from shock. What? You fixed it? You earned it. Consider it a signing bonus. Jack's expression was unreadable. Besides, you can't be part of this world without a ride. Doesn't work that way. Jack, I can't. This is too much. It's mine to give, and I'm giving it. Jack turned to head back inside, then stopped. Your dad would be proud of you, kid. The mechanic stuff, yeah, but also the rest of it. Standing up when it mattered. That takes guts. Caleb sat on his new bike. His bike, and felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them back hard. Saturday's run was everything Caleb had hoped for and nothing he'd expected. 70 bikers showed up at the meeting point, and Caleb realized with a start that he knew most of them from the compound. They greeted him like an old friend, asked about the new job, admired his Softail. Not bad for a first bike, Rath said, circling it critically. Needs better pipes, though. Stock exhaust sounds like a sewing machine. I'll add it to the list. The ride to Sedona was freedom in its purest form. Wind in his face engine thrumming between his legs, the desert stretching endless on both sides. For 3 hours, nothing mattered except the road and the riders around him moving together like a flock of birds. They stopped for lunch at a roadside diner where the waitress took one look at the parking lot full of Harleys and muttered something about calling the cops. Relax, Betty, Clutch called out. We're just hungry, not here to rob you. Last time bikers showed up, they trashed the bathroom and stiffed me on the tip. That wasn't us. We tip 20% and our bathroom habits are impeccable. Clutch pulled out a $100 bill. This cover any concerns? Betty pocketed the money and her attitude improved dramatically. What can I get you boys? Over burgers and fries. Arthur pulled Caleb aside. I'm there. How you holding up first ride? It's incredible. Yeah, it gets in your blood. Fair warning. Arthur's expression grew serious. I heard about the DA calling. You ready for what's coming? I don't know. Maybe. Caleb pushed fries around his plate. I keep thinking about sitting in that courtroom with Dalton staring at me, knowing he wants me dead. He can't touch you. Not anymore. Arthur's voice was firm. He's in federal lockup, no bail under 24-hour surveillance. And even if by some miracle he got out, he'd have to go through 400 pissed-off bikers to get to you. Those aren't good odds. What about after the trial, when everyone goes back to their normal lives? You think we're just going to forget about you? Arthur looked genuinely offended. Kid, you're family now. That doesn't have an expiration date. 10 years from now, you need help, you call. We show up. That's how this works. I'm not used to that. Get used to it. Arthur stood. Come on, Rath wants to teach you formation riding. Says you were weaving around like a drunk driver. I was not. His words, not mine. Take it up with him. The afternoon ride back to Phoenix was harder. Caleb's legs ached, his back was sore, and the sun had turned him a shade of red that would hurt tomorrow. But he'd never felt more alive. Monday brought the first witness prep session with Linda Chen. Her office was downtown high-rise with a view of the city. She sat Caleb down in a conference room and didn't waste time with pleasantries. Let's start with the hardest question you'll face. Did Arthur Caldwell promise you anything in exchange for hiding that evidence? No, he just asked me to keep it from Dalton. Did he threaten you? He was dying. He could barely talk. Defense is going to say he coerced you with implied threats, that you were afraid of the Hell's Angels. I was afraid, but not of Arthur. I was afraid of letting a man bleed out on the highway. Caleb met her eyes. That's the truth. Truth is a starting point, but in court it's about how you present truth. Linda pulled out a legal pad. We're going to run through this 100 times until you can answer these questions in your sleep. Because Dalton's lawyer, a man named Richardson, who makes sharks look cuddly, he's going to try to break you. Make you angry, make you contradict yourself, make you look unreliable. For 3 hours, Linda grilled him. Same questions, different angles, relentless. By the end, Caleb's head was pounding and his throat was raw. That's enough for today, Linda said, finally showing mercy. You did well, better than most first-timers. Didn't feel like it. You stayed calm, didn't get defensive. That's half the battle. She walked him to the elevator. Grand jury is in 2 weeks. Between now and then, we meet 3 more times. And Caleb, don't talk to anyone about your testimony. Not friends, not coworkers, nobody. Defense will claim witness tampering if they can prove coordination. What about Arthur? Arthur's a federal agent. Different rules. Linda's smile was thin. But to be safe, keep conversations general. How's the weather? How's the bike? Nothing about the case. Caleb rode back to the shop feeling wrung out and anxious. Jack took one look at him and sent him home early. You look like hell. Go sleep. We'll manage without you for one afternoon. That night, Caleb's phone rang again. Unknown number, but this time local. Caleb Hayes. A man's voice rough and unfriendly. Who's this? Someone who knows what you did. Who knows you're the reason good men are in jail. The voice was careful, controlled. You should have minded your business, kid. Caleb's blood went cold. How'd you get this number? How do you think you're not as protected as you believe? A pause. You got a choice to make. Drop the testimony, tell the D. You were mistaken, or... Caleb hung up and immediately called Arthur. I just got a threat. Someone called, knew my number, knew about the testimony. Slow down, what exactly did they say? Caleb repeated the conversation word for word. Arthur was silent for a long moment. That's one of Dalton's guys, has to be. Someone who didn't get caught in the first sweep. Arthur's voice hardened. Give me the number that called you. Caleb read it off. What are you going to do? Trace it. Find out who owns it. Then have a friendly conversation about witness intimidation. Arthur paused. In the meantime, you don't answer unknown numbers. You vary your routine, don't leave work the same time every day, don't take the same route home. And you keep that 9mm close. This is insane. This is what happens when you go after powerful people. They push back. Arthur's tone softened slightly. But you're not alone. Remember, I'm making some calls right now. By tonight, you'll have protection. What kind of protection? The kind with Hell's Angels patches and a lot of guns. True to his word, by 9 p.m. there was a knock on Caleb's door. He checked the peephole and found Rath standing in the hallway looking annoyed. You gonna let me in or make me stand out here all night? Caleb opened the door. What are you doing here? Babysitting. Arthur called, said someone threatened you, so I'm your new roommate until this blows over. Rath pushed past him, carrying a duffel bag. Which room's yours? The bedroom. There's only one. Then I'm taking the couch. You got coffee? Yeah, but good. I drink a lot of it. Rath dropped his bag and pulled out a pistol, which he set on the coffee table with casual familiarity. House rules, you go somewhere, I go with you. You get a weird call, you tell me. Someone looks at you wrong, you tell me. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to keep you breathing. We clear, crystal. Good, now make coffee. I've been riding for 3 hours and I'm tired. Having Rath as a roommate was like living with a heavily armed monk. He was quiet, efficient, and utterly humorless. He slept in 4-hour shifts and spent the rest of the time maintaining weapons or doing push-ups in the living room. You ever relax? Caleb asked on the third morning. Relaxing gets people killed. You're going to give yourself a heart attack. Better than a bullet. Rath finished his set and stood. You ready for work? I can drive myself. No, you can't. Not until we know who made that call. Rath grabbed his keys. I'm driving, you're riding. Non-negotiable. The mechanics at Desert Dreams found Rath's presence hilarious. You got a bodyguard now, Carlos asked, grinning. What, you piss off the wrong customer? Something like that. Rath stationed himself in the corner of the shop, arms crossed, scanning every person who walked through the door like they might pull a gun. A couple of customers asked if there was a problem. No problem, Jack assured them. Just enhanced security. You know how it is these days. One afternoon, a man in an expensive suit came in asking about custom work. Rath was on him in seconds. Who sent you? The man blinked. What? Simple question. Who told you about this shop? A friend. I saw some bikes at a show and... The man looked at Jack confused. Is there a problem? Jack intervened smoothly. No problem at all. My associate is just enthusiastic about screening clients. What kind of bike are you interested in? The man left 20 minutes later with a consultation appointment, looking rattled. You can't interrogate customers, Jack said mildly. Can and did. Wrath didn't look apologetic. Anyone could be a threat. Or they could be a guy who wants a motorcycle. Same thing until proven otherwise. Caleb pulled Jack aside. I'm sorry about this. If it's a problem, I can... Relax. I knew what I was signing up for when Arthur vouched for you. Jack's expression was understanding. This trial's important. Bigger than bikes. You do what you need to do and we'll work around it. The grand jury testimony came faster than Caleb was ready for. Linda met him at the courthouse looking sharp in a navy suit. Remember what we practiced. Answer the questions clearly. Don't volunteer extra information, and if you don't understand something, ask for clarification. She squeezed his arm. You've got this. The grand jury room was smaller than Caleb expected. 23 people sitting in rows watching him take the oath. The prosecutor, a man named Williams who worked with Linda, walked him through the events of that day, step by methodical step. And when Sheriff Dalton approached you at the auto shop, what did he say? He asked if Arthur had given me anything. Papers, a bag, a flash drive. He said I should give it to him. Did he threaten you? Yes. He said if I didn't cooperate, I'd have an unfortunate accident, like Arthur did. Caleb's voice was steady. He said trucks swerve all the time on that highway. Murmurs rippled through the jury. The prosecutor let the words hang for a moment. And you'd interpreted that as a threat on your life? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. No further questions. It was over in 40 minutes. The jury deliberated for less than 10, then returned a true bill. Dalton was formally indicted on all charges. Linda was waiting outside. Perfect. You were perfect. Clear, credible, unshakable. I was terrified. Didn't show. That's what matters. She checked her phone. Trial's set for 6 weeks from now. We'll do more prep closer to the date, but for now you can breathe a little. Caleb texted Arthur. It's done, they indicted. Told you? You're a natural. Drinks tonight to celebrate Wrath won't let me go to a bar. Then we'll bring the bar to you. See you at 7. They showed up with enough beer and whiskey to stock a liquor store. Tiny Arthur Clutch and a dozen other bikers crammed into Caleb's small apartment, turning it into an impromptu party. To Caleb, Clutch raised his beer, who proved that doing the right thing still means something in this fucked up world. Here, the room erupted in agreement. Caleb felt his throat tighten with emotion. These men, outlaws, rebels, people society looked at with suspicion, had protected him, supported him, treated him like family, and all because he'd stopped to help someone. I just did what anyone should have done, he said quietly. But most people don't, Arthur said. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you one of us. Later, after most of the guys had left and only Tiny and Arthur remained, Caleb asked the question that had been nagging him. What happens after the trial, when Dalton goes to prison and this is all over? You live your life, Arthur said simply. You build bikes, maybe find a girl, buy a house, have some kids. You know, normal stuff. And you guys will still be here, still riding, still looking out for each other. Arthur smiled. And you'll be part of that. You want to ride with us? You ride. You need help moving furniture? We show up. Your kid has a school play? We're in the audience. That's what family does. Even though I'm not a patch member, you're an honorary brother. That's just as real. Tiny stood stretching. Now I gotta head out. Work in the morning. But Caleb, he gripped his shoulder. You did good. Real good. After they left, Caleb sat alone in his quiet apartment, thinking about the last few weeks. How his life had changed. How he'd changed. A month ago, he'd been nobody. Invisible. Just another mechanic in a nowhere town. Now he had a future. People who cared about him. A purpose. And all because he'd made one choice on a hot highway in Arizona. One choice that had seemed so simple at the time. Stop in to help. His phone buzzed. Uncle Vernon? Heard you testified. You okay? Caleb stared at the message for a long time before responding. Yeah. I'm good. Better than good, actually. Good. I'm proud of you, kid. Your daddy would be too. Thanks, Uncle Vernon. That means a lot. You need anything you call. I mean it. I will. Caleb set the phone down and looked around his apartment, at the certificate on his dresser, at Wrath asleep on the couch, one hand resting on his pistol even in sleep, at the keys to his Softail hanging by the door. This was his life now. Complicated, dangerous sometimes, but real. full of people who showed up when it mattered. He wouldn't trade it for anything. Outside, the Phoenix night was alive with sound traffic sirens, the distant rumble of motorcycles heading home. Caleb stood at his window watching the city lights and felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like he belonged. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The trial was still coming. Dalton's reach might still extend beyond prison walls. The threats might continue. But tonight, Caleb Hayes was exactly where he needed to be, and that was enough. The trial started on a Monday morning in October, 6 weeks after the grand jury indictment. Caleb woke at 5 a.m. to find Rath already dressed in a suit that looked uncomfortable on his massive frame. "Didn't know you owned a suit," Caleb said. "I don't. Borrowed it from Clutch." Rath tugged at the collar. "Feels like a noose, but Linda said we need to look respectable. Can't have the jury thinking we're thugs." "You're thugs. We're concerned citizens who happen to ride motorcycles." Rath's deadpan delivery almost made Caleb laugh despite his nerves. "Now get dressed. We leave in 30 minutes. The courthouse steps were packed with media. Cameras, reporters shouting questions, microphones thrust forward like weapons. Caleb froze at the sight. "Keep walking," Arthur said, appearing at his elbow. "Don't look at them. Don't answer anything. Just walk." They formed a protective circle around him. Arthur Rath, Tiny Clutch, and a dozen other bikers, all in suits and ties. The reporters surged forward but couldn't break through. "Mr. Hayes, is it true you're being threatened? Did the Hells Angels pay you to testify? Are you afraid of Sheriff Dalton?" Caleb kept his eyes straight ahead and his mouth shut. Linda was waiting at the courthouse entrance, looking furious. "I told them not to camp the steps," she muttered. "Judge is going to have security clear them out." Inside, the courtroom was smaller than Caleb expected, but packed with people. Dalton sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, looking older and harder than Caleb remembered. His eyes found Caleb immediately, and the hatred in them was a physical thing. Caleb's hands started shaking. Arthur noticed and leaned close. "He can't touch you. He's in chains. You're free. Remember that." The judge, a stern woman named Martinez, called the court to order. The jury filed in 12 ordinary people who would decide Dalton's fate. Some looked curious, others bored, one woman openly hostile. "The state may call its first witness," Judge Martinez said. "The state calls Agent Arthur Caldwell." Arthur took the stand, was sworn in, and spent 90 minutes walking the jury through his undercover operation. How he'd infiltrated the cartel's network. How Dalton had facilitated drug shipments through his county in exchange for massive payoffs. How Arthur had documented everything. Dalton's lawyer, Richardson, was everything Linda had warned about. Slick, aggressive, relentless. "Agent Caldwell, isn't it true you violated protocol by not informing your superior officers of your activities?" "I informed the appropriate people." "Yes or no, Agent? Did you follow standard DEA procedure?" Arthur's jaw tightened. The situation was fluid. Standard procedure would have compromised the operation. "So you broke the rules?" Richardson smiled like a shark. "And in breaking those rules, you fabricated evidence to frame my client." "I fabricated nothing. Every document, every photo, every transaction is real and verified." "By whom?" "Your biker friends." Richardson gestured dismissively at the gallery where the Hells Angels sat. "Hardly credible witnesses." "By federal forensic accountants, by digital analysis experts, by testimony from 3 separate cartel members, who were offered deals in exchange for their testimony. They'd say anything to save themselves." The back and forth went on for hours. Richardson tried every angle to discredit Arthur to make his evidence seem tainted or manufactured. But Arthur held firm, his answers clear and consistent. During recess, Caleb found Arthur in the hallway looking exhausted. "You did great," Caleb said. "I felt like I was wrestling an eel." "Slippery bastard." Arthur drank from a water fountain. "Your turn's tomorrow. You ready?" "No." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just remember, tell the truth. Stay calm. Don't let Richardson bait you into anger." Arthur gripped his shoulder. "You've got this, kid." That night, Caleb barely slept. He ran through Linda's prep questions over and over in his head, trying to anticipate what Richardson would ask, how he'd twist things. Morning came too fast. Rath made him eat breakfast even though his stomach was in knots. "You're going to need energy. Testifying's harder than you think." The courthouse was even more packed than before. Word had spread about the mechanic who'd saved the undercover agent, and people wanted to see him in person. The state calls Caleb Hayes. Caleb's legs felt like water walking to the stand. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, then sat down and faced the courtroom. The jury watched him with interest. Dalton watched him with murder in his eyes. Linda started gently. Mr. Hayes, can you tell the jury what you were doing on the afternoon of August 14th? Working at my uncle's auto shop. It was a normal day until I heard the crash. And what did you do when you heard it? I ran toward it. I saw a man on a motorcycle lying in the road bleeding. I tried to help him. Did you know who this man was? Not at first. I saw his vest said Hell's Angels, but I didn't know his name or anything about him. I just knew he was dying. Linda walked him through the whole story. The tourniquet, Arthur's warning about Dalton, the leather roll hiding the evidence. Caleb kept his voice steady, his answers clear. Then Richardson stood up for cross-examination, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Mr. Hayes, you testified that you tried to help Mr. Caldwell, but isn't it true you saw an opportunity? An opportunity for what? To ingratiate yourself with a notorious criminal organization. The Hell's Angels. Richardson's voice dripped condescension. You saw that patch, and you saw a chance to join their ranks. No, I saw a man bleeding to death. Really, because within days of this incident, you were living at a Hell's Angels compound, working for a Hell's Angels affiliated business, riding with them. Richardson consulted his notes. Sounds less like a good Samaritan and more like someone who seized an opportunity. Caleb felt anger rising but forced it down. I went to the compound because people were trying to kill me. The Hell's Angels protected me when nobody else would. How convenient. And in exchange for this protection, you testified against my client. I testified because it's the truth. Dalton tried to kill Arthur. He threatened to kill me. He's guilty. You're not here to determine guilt, Mr. Hayes. You're here to answer questions. Richardson moved closer. Let's talk about this evidence you claim Mr. Caldwell gave you. This leather roll. How do we know you didn't fabricate it? Plant false documents. Because I'm a 19-year-old mechanic, not a forger, and federal experts verified everything. Or the federal agents who wanted to nail my client verified what you and Mr. Caldwell fabricated together. That's not what happened. You expect this jury to believe that a dying man had the presence of mind to tell you to hide evidence, to give you detailed instructions while bleeding out. He didn't give me detailed instructions. He said, hide it and Dalton can't find it. That's it. Richardson's smile was cruel, and yet you knew exactly what to do with it. Knew to give it to the Hell's Angels instead of police, almost like you'd been coached. Arthur was unconscious when I hit it. Nobody coached me to do anything. Convenient that he was unconscious and can't contradict your story. He's sitting right there, ask him. I did, and he gave the same rehearsed answers you're giving now. Richardson leaned on the witness box. Tell me, Mr. Hayes, how much are they paying you? Caleb blinked. What? The Hell's Angels. How much are they paying you to lie on this stand? Nobody's paying me anything. You got a new job making $70,000 a year. A free motorcycle, free housing. Sounds like payment to me. That's my salary for working as a mechanic. At a business owned by Hell's Angels Associates. Quite the coincidence. Linda objected. Your Honor, counsel is badgering the witness and making baseless accusations. Sustained. Mr. Richardson, stick to questions about the incident, not speculation about conspiracies. But the damage was done. Richardson had planted doubt. Caleb could see it on some of the jurors' faces, uncertainty, skepticism. The cross-examination went on for 3 brutal hours. Richardson attacked every detail, twisted every answer, made Caleb repeat himself until words lost meaning. By the time Judge Martinez called recess, Caleb felt wrung out and defeated. You did fine, Linda assured him in the hallway. He's grasping at straws because he has no real defense. The evidence speaks for itself. He made me sound like a liar. He made you sound defensive, which is natural. But your core testimony held. That's what matters. Linda checked her watch. Prosecution rests tomorrow. Then Richardson puts on his defense. Should be quick, he's got nothing. But Richardson surprised everyone. His first witness was a forensic accountant who testified that the ledgers could have been altered. His second was a former DEA agent who'd been fired for misconduct, who claimed Arthur had a history of manufacturing evidence. This is bullshit, Arthur muttered from the gallery. That guy lost his badge for stealing from evidence lockups. His third witness was Vernon. Caleb's stomach dropped when his uncle walked into the courtroom, looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't fit quite right. Mr. Vernon Hayes, you're the defendant's nephew's uncle, correct? Yeah, I raised Caleb after his parents died. And you were present when Sheriff Dalton visited your auto shop. I was. Can you tell the jury what happened during that visit? Vernon's eyes flicked to Caleb, guilty and apologetic. Dalton asked Caleb some questions about the accident. Caleb said he didn't know nothing. Then Dalton left. Did Sheriff Dalton threaten Mr. Hayes in any way? Not that I heard. Caleb felt like he'd been punched. Vernon was lying. Why was Vernon lying? Richardson smiled. No threats, no intimidation, just a sheriff doing his job investigating an accident. That's what it seemed like to me. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. No further questions. Linda stood for cross-examination. Mr. Hayes, where were you during this conversation between Sheriff Dalton and your nephew? Inside the shop. How far away? Maybe 50 feet. Could you hear everything that was said? Vernon hesitated. Most of it. Most of it. So it's possible Sheriff Dalton said things you didn't hear? I guess. And after this visit, you asked your nephew to leave town, didn't you? I asked him to take a vacation. For his safety. Because you were afraid of what Sheriff Dalton might do. Objection leading. Sustained. Linda tried a different angle. Did Sheriff Dalton ever come back to your shop after that day? No. Did he contact you by phone? Vernon's face went pale. Once. And what did he say during that call? Objection hearsay. Your Honor, this goes to witness credibility. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Hayes. Vernon looked at Dalton, then at Caleb, then down at his hands. He said if I testified against him, my business would burn, and I'd be inside it. The courtroom erupted. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Order? So Sheriff Dalton did threaten you, Linda said quietly. Yeah, he did. And yet you testified that you heard no threats to your nephew. Why? Vernon's voice was barely audible. Because I was scared. No further questions. During the lunch break, Caleb cornered Vernon outside the courthouse. Why'd you lie? Caleb, I'm sorry, Dalton got to me. After they arrested him, one of his guys called, said if I testified honestly, they'd kill me. Vernon's hands were shaking. I got a business, a life. I can't. So you were willing to let him walk free? Let him get away with everything? I was trying to protect myself. You were protecting a killer. Caleb's voice was cold. My dad would be ashamed of you. Vernon flinched like he'd been slapped. Your daddy was brave. I'm not. I'm just a guy trying to survive. We all are, Uncle Vernon. Difference is, some of us don't throw other people under the bus to do it. Caleb walked away and didn't look back. The prosecution's rebuttal was devastating. They brought in phone records showing Dalton's burner phone calling Vernon 3 times. They brought in testimony from other witnesses. The paramedic Rosa who'd seen Dalton lurking around Arthur's hospital room. A state trooper who'd pulled Dalton's Silverado over for speeding 2 hours before Arthur's crash, placing him definitively in the area. Most damning was the traffic camera footage. Clear as day, showing Dalton's truck swerving across the center line directly into Arthur's motorcycle. Richardson had no response to that. He tried to argue the footage was inconclusive, that the swerve could have been accidental, that Arthur might have lost control first. But the jury wasn't buying it. Closing arguments took a full day. Richardson painted Dalton as a dedicated sheriff, targeted by a criminal organization trying to eliminate a lawman who'd gotten too close to their operation. Linda painted him as exactly what he was, a corrupt cop who'd sold out his county for cartel money and tried to murder the agent who'd exposed him. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Caleb spent them in a courthouse conference room with Arthur and the others, too nervous to eat or drink or do anything but wait. When the bailiff finally called them back, Caleb's heart was hammering so hard he thought it might burst. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Martinez asked. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of attempted murder in the 1st degree, how do you find guilty? Caleb's knees nearly buckled. Arthur caught his arm, grinning. On the charge of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, how do you find my answering? Guilty. On the charge of racketeering, guilty, 47 counts. Guilty on every single one. Dalton's face went white, then red. He stood slamming his hands on the table. This is a travesty. This jury was intimidated. Sit down, Mr. Dalton, Judge Martinez said coldly. Sentencing is set for 4 weeks from today. Defendant remanded without bail. Court is adjourned. As they dragged Dalton out of the courtroom, he twisted to look back at Caleb. You're dead, kid. You hear me? You're fucking dead. Wrath stepped in front of Caleb, blocking Dalton's view. Keep walking, Sheriff. You got nothing to say that matters anymore. Outside the courthouse, the Hells Angels erupted in celebration. Reporters swarmed again, but this time Caleb didn't hide from them. How do you feel about the verdict? One shouted. I feel like justice was served, Caleb said. A guilty man is going to prison. That's how it should be. Were you afraid to testify? Terrified, but some things are more important than fear. What's next for you? Caleb looked at Arthur, at Tiny, at Clutch and Wrath, and all the others who'd become his family. I'm going back to work, building bikes, living my life. That's what matters now. That night, the celebration at the clubhouse was massive. Every charter in Arizona showed up, plus some from Nevada and California. Music, food, enough alcohol to float a boat. Caleb found himself passed from hug to hug, congratulated until his ears rang. Speech, someone shouted. Speech, speech. Clutch handed Caleb a beer and gestured for quiet. Kid's got something to say. Caleb stood on a chair, feeling ridiculous and overwhelmed and grateful all at once. I don't really know what to say, except thank you. A month ago, I was nobody, just a kid fixing cars in the middle of nowhere. Then I made one choice to stop and help someone, and that choice changed everything. He looked around at the faces watching him. You guys didn't have to protect me, didn't have to give me a job or a home or become my family. But you did, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that. You already are, kid, Tiny called out. You saved Arthur's life, Clutch added. You stood up when everyone else would have walked away. That's all the worthy we need. Well, I'm grateful anyway, to all of you. You showed me what family really means. Not blood, though Uncle Vernon tried, but showing up when it matters. Fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. That's what you guys do every day, and it's what I want to do too. He raised his beer. To the Hells Angels, to Arthur, to second chances and new lives and doing the right thing even when it's scary as hell. The roar of approval nearly took the roof off. Later, after most people had filtered out or passed out, Caleb sat with Arthur on the clubhouse porch, watching the desert stars. Sentencing's in 4 weeks, Arthur said. You gonna be there? Wouldn't miss it. Dalton's looking at life without parole. 30 years minimum on the attempted murder alone, plus the federal charges. Arthur smiled grimly. He'll die in prison. Good. Caleb didn't feel conflicted about that. He deserves it. Yeah, he does. Arthur was quiet for a moment. You know what the best part of this is? Not that we caught Dalton, though. That's pretty damn satisfying. It's that you proved something important. What's that? That one person can make a difference. That doing the right thing matters. That stopping to help someone, even a stranger, even when it's dangerous, that creates ripples that change everything. Arthur looked at him. You saved my life, but you also saved a dozen other lives we didn't even know about yet. The evidence you protected, it's led to 17 more arrests, cartel members, corrupt officials, dirty cops, a whole network of scumbags going down because a 19-year-old kid pressed a shirt against a wound and refused to look away. Caleb felt his throat tighten. I was just trying to keep you alive. I know, that's what makes it matter. Arthur stood stretching. Come on, Stella's making breakfast and she gets pissy if people miss it. The sentencing hearing 4 weeks later was anticlimactic after the trial. Dalton stood before Judge Martinez, shackled and defeated, and listened as she handed down sentence after sentence. Life in prison without possibility of parole on the attempted murder charge. 30 years on conspiracy charges. 20 years on racketeering. To run consecutively, not concurrently. Dalton would die in prison. There was no other outcome. As they led him away, he didn't look at Caleb. Didn't say anything. Just shuffled off in chains, a broken man who'd bet everything on corruption and lost. It's over, Linda said, shaking Caleb's hand. Really, truly over. You can get back to your life now. Thanks for everything. Thank you for having the courage to testify. This case makes my career. She smiled, and more importantly, it puts a dangerous man away forever. The months that followed were the best of Caleb's life. He threw himself into work at Desert Dreams, learning advanced fabrication techniques, design principles, the art of making motorcycles that were equal parts machine and sculpture. Jack promoted him to lead mechanic with a raise that made Caleb's head spin. He rode with the Hells Angels every weekend, long runs through the desert up to Flagstaff over to California. He learned their traditions, their codes, their bonds. He earned his place among them not through violence or crime, but through loyalty and showing up when it mattered. His apartment slowly filled with life photos from rides, patches gifted by various clubs, a leather jacket Stella had bought him for his birthday. He dated a girl named Maria who worked at a coffee shop and didn't care that his friends were bikers. He started saving money for his own place, maybe a small house with a garage. He called Uncle Vernon once a month. The conversations were stilted, at first heavy with everything unsaid. But slowly, painfully, they rebuilt something. Not what they'd had before, but something new. Something honest. "I'm sorry," Vernon said one night, 6 months after the trial, "for lying on that stand, for kicking you out, for being afraid when you needed me to be brave. I know, Uncle Vernon, and I forgive you." Caleb meant it. Fear makes people do stupid things. I get it now. "You're a better man than me, kid." "Nah, just luckier. I had people who showed me what it looks like to stand up when it matters." A year after the trial, Caleb got a call from Agent Reeves. "Cordero's going to trial in Mexico. Their prosecutors want you to provide a deposition. Nothing in person, just video testimony about your role in preserving evidence. Will it help the case? It'll seal it. He's looking at 40 years in a Mexican federal prison." "Then I'll do it." The deposition took an afternoon. Caleb told his story one more time, and this time it didn't hurt. It was just history now, not trauma. Just the truth about what had happened and what he'd done. When it was finished, Reeves thanked him. "You've helped bring down one of the largest cartel operations in the Southwest. That's a legacy to be proud of." "I just stopped to help someone." "Exactly. And look what that one choice created." Reeves smiled. "Take care of yourself, Caleb. You're one of the good ones." On the first anniversary of the day he'd saved Arthur's life, the Hells Angels threw a party at the clubhouse. Not just Arizona charters from 15 states showed up to honor the kid who'd changed everything. Arthur presented him with a custom motorcycle built by Caleb's own hands at Desert Dreams, but paid for by the club. It was a masterpiece, all chrome and black leather and power. "You earned this," Arthur said, "not just for saving me, but for everything that came after. For standing tall when they tried to break you. For proving that courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about doing the right thing anyway." Caleb ran his hand over the bike's fuel tank, which bore a small engraving, "One choice changes everything." "Thank you," he whispered. "All of you, for giving me a family, a purpose, a life worth living." "You gave us something too," Clutch said. "You reminded us why we do this, why we ride together, protect each other, stand up for what's right. You reminded us that it matters." That night, Caleb rode his new bike under Arizona stars, surrounded by 400 brothers who'd become his family. The highway stretched endless ahead, full of possibility and promise. He thought about his parents, about how proud they'd be. About his dad teaching him to fix engines, about his mom telling him to always help people who needed it. About the values they'd instilled that had saved Arthur's life and changed his own. He thought about Dalton rotting in prison, about Cordero facing justice in Mexico, about all the lives saved because one 19-year-old mechanic had refused to look away. And he thought about the choice he'd made on that hot August afternoon, the split-second decision to run toward the wreckage instead of away from it. That choice had cost him his old life, his safety, his anonymity. But it had given him everything that mattered. A family who showed up when it counted, a career he loved, a purpose bigger than himself, in the knowledge that when the moment came when it would have been easier to walk away, he'd done the right thing. Caleb Hayes had stopped to help a dying stranger on a desolate highway, and in doing so, he'd found exactly who he was meant to be. Not a nobody mechanic from a nowhere town, a brother, a friend, a man who stood up when it mattered. And that choice, that one simple, terrifying, beautiful choice to help someone in need, had changed absolutely everything.